Hello and welcome back to the channel. Do like and subscribe for more film and television cultural analysis here at Gooder's Front Room. Inception is a 2010 film directed by Christopher Nolan, a science fiction film where technology exists that allows people to share and control the dreams of others. The group of characters we focus on are effectively criminals who use this technology to extract information out of the subconsciouses of their targets. The basic setup is that main character Cobb is set the task of actually inserting an idea into the mind of a target rather than taking information out. The film is essentially set up as a heist film. It's broken up into those distinct phases. So we have getting the crew together, establishing how the job is going to work. Obviously the heist itself, which then begins to go beyond the plan that was made. As the film goes on, we learn that there is something in Cobb's past that haunts him and has separated him from his family, and we learn the details around that as things progress. One of the key elements in the film is that each character has what is known as a totem, which is an item which is unique to them. It helps these characters differentiate between being in reality and in the dream world. The idea is that your totem is essentially a small sort of pocket-sized item which only you know the kind of real dimensions, feel, weight of, something unique to yourself, and it helps you know which world you're in, because if you were in a dream world, it's not something that somebody else can recreate and have it feel exactly right. You would know that something else was off about it. Whereas, if you're in the real world, it feels as you know it should feel. And that's your confirmation that you've woken up, that you're no longer in a fantasy. Cobb's totem is a small spinning top, which we actually learn once belonged to his wife. And it's put forward the idea that in a dream world, the top would keep spinning forever, that its weight wouldn't be right, and thus it would never slow and stop. So the closing shot of the film is actually the spinning top. Cobb sets it going and then moves away to see his children. And we briefly go back to a shot of a close-up on the top, and we see it briefly slow. It slightly wobbles, but it keeps spinning, and then just as that happens, the film cuts to black. And ever since the film's release, there's been a lot of discussion over what this means, over is the top going to fall over and stop, so Cobb is in the real world, or is the top just going to keep spinning forever? Is Cobb still dreaming? And the film gives us another signs, to be fair, that suggest that he is still dreaming. He has his perfect happy ending, for example. He's reunited back with his children. Suggested that the forces that have been chasing him throughout the film are actually just elements of subconscious sort of defenses in his brain. As the dream version of Mal puts it at one point, no creeping doubts, not feeling persecuted, Dom. Chased around the globe by anonymous corporations and police forces, the way the projections persecute the dreamer. Admit it, you don't believe in one reality anymore. But in the end, whether the top spins or continues going doesn't matter. It's the wrong thing to be thinking about. That is taking the film on the purely structural sort of plot level, because the real heart of the film is Cobb's emotional journey and the changes in him that mean that this spinning top no longer matters. The film tips us off early to the real sort of core theme of the film, with its almost kind of ironic use of Edith Piaf singing Non Je ne regrette rien, a song all about not having regrets, but our central character Cobb is riddled with regret. The film is the progress of his guilt and grief over what we come to find out is the death of his wife and the part that he has played in that. Through flashbacks and dialogue, we learn that previously Cobb and his wife Mal experimented with the dreaming technology, going ever deeper into the layers of different dreams and staying in the fantasy dream worlds for longer and longer. Eventually they ended up in what in the film is regarded as limbo, the sort of bottom level of dreaming, where, you know, unless you take action to wake up again, you would exist essentially forever. There is this setup in the film that if you go into a dream, then time is different. So 5 minutes asleep is 60 minutes in the dream world. And of course the film is built on this idea of dreams within dreams, and the time difference keeps changing the further kind of you go down these levels. So by the time that you go into what would be your fourth dream within a dream, you are entering a place basically where time would be meaningless, where existence would go on forever. So Cobb and Mal went to this level and spent a large amount of time there. At one point Cobb estimates that it was probably something equivalent to 50 years worth of time of the two of them being in limbo. And it had the benefits of they could create their own world around them from scratch and build up, you know, everything that was important to them, everything that they'd ever dreamed about, they could create around them. But things come to a head where Cobb realizes that they need to wake up again, that they cannot just simply exist here forever. The issue being that Mal does not initially want to. There is something in her that means that she wants to stay like this. So unable to convince her to wake up with him, Cobb actually does put the idea, he uses this concept of inception, he puts the idea into Mal's mind that her reality isn't real, that, you know, this needs to change, that she needs to wake up. This does allow him to convince her to wake up with him, but as we see, the problem is that once they are back in reality, the thought is still there, the idea is still in her mind that this isn't her reality, that she needs to wake up. And this does effectively end up with her committing suicide. This is what wreaks Cobb with grief and guilt, the loss of his wife, and also the idea that he is inadvertently responsible for it. And it's through this film work that the film can actually be seen to be addressing ideas of depression and suicide as well. That's definitely within the sort of themes of this film. It's no accident that the way dreamers wake up from each level of the dream is to sort of basically kill themselves within that dream. There is a deliberate choice of why that is the method for people being able to wake themselves up. So the Cobb we meet right from the beginning, although we don't yet realise it, is a character struggling with his grief and his guilt to the point where these things are holding him back. These things are sabotaging his life, his work. He is desperate to get back to see his family, his children that he has left behind. in the States because he believes he is wanted for the death of his wife. And it is actually his dream world representation of Mal that is really doing the damage. The Mal that we see in the film is Cobb's representation of his own grief. We never see the real Mal. We never get to meet the real character, this real woman. All we are seeing is Cobb's feelings about her kind of wrapped up with the aspects of her that he can remember. And, you know, as he admits himself, that is fading. He can't remember her perfectly, and he never will. And this representation of Mal keeps popping up in Cobb's mind, in his subconscious, as he's in these dream worlds. As said, she often sort of is seen to be sabotaging his work. She often, you know, disappears and appears out of nowhere at the worst possible times. And it's through her that we actually see Cobb going through the sort of classical signs of grief, and kind of using her to express it back to himself, because, you know, this projection of Mal is essentially his own subconscious. So we see, you know, denial, with Mal encouraging Cobb to join her forever in the sort of limbo dream world. We see the anger of it, you know, when she's confronting him and shouting that he promised that they would be together forever. There's the bargaining. We see her kind of negotiating with Cobb, saying, you know, you stay with me and I will let Fisher, who is the target that she's kind of interfering with, go. She will let him wake up if Cobb stays. We can see sort of depression being expressed by Cobb throughout. You know, he's not sleeping. We see sort of aspects of depressive behaviour coming through in the Mal that we see. And of course, finally, we get Cobb's acceptance of his grief, you know, in these closing scenes in limbo. And basically, Cobb has had to hit rock bottom, both kind of metaphorically and within the structures of what the film sets up. It's at this bottom level of dreaming, this bottom level of consciousness, that he finally realizes that it's time to let go, that this version of Mal to which he's been clinging on is not really a her. As he says that, you know, he wishes more than anything that he could stay with her. And he goes on to say, but I can't imagine you with all of your complexity, all of your perfection, all of your imperfection. You are just a shade of my real wife. You're the best I can do, but I'm sorry, it's just not good enough. And it is this moment of release, this moment of letting go, that essentially lets Cobb complete the mission that the team have been on. And, you know, from here we get a sequence where we see him safely getting back into the United States and seeing his children again. And, you know, as we mentioned, this is the scene where we see him spin the top on the counter. He hears his children and he goes to them. Now, throughout the film, we've seen flashes of a memory of his children appearing at different times. There's a line in there about this is the last memory of them that he has, and they turned away from him before he saw them properly. But the key difference now, whatever you believe, whether you believe that he is still dreaming or he has woken up, the key difference in Cobb is he has let go of his grief. He's been able to move past that. And that is the emotional core of the story, rather than the mechanical kind of plot elements. You know, this is the heart of it. And that is why it's critical that as Cobb spins the top, that he moves away. He's moved away from needing to constantly know whether he's dreaming or not. He has had a catharsis. He has moved on. He has realised that what is important to him more than anything is his children. And like we say, he's managed to work through and let go of his guilt and his grief over Mal's death. You can even take the final closing moments of the spinning top in the film as a sign that life goes on. Mal has gone, she has left, Cobb has now accepted this, but life, real or unreal, goes on. If you've not seen the film for a while, I would strongly urge watching it again, but keeping in mind this idea that the Mal that you see is nothing more than a representation of Cobb's grief, rather than an antagonist or a real woman. You know, she is this imagined figure for Cobb. She is Cobb's subconscious, and the film doesn't tip us off to that clearly straight away. But if you bear that in mind, I think it does bring out the sort of the themes and the meanings of a lot of what is going on here. And that is why, for me, whether the top continues or falls doesn't really matter, because we have a conclusion to the real core heart of the story, which is Cobb's emotional journey. So yeah, for me, whether it keeps going or not, I really don't care. But yeah, please do let me know what you think in the comments section. You know, what is your take on it? And I will be back with another video looking at an interesting aspect of a film again soon.